If you don't track your numbers, you are living in chaos. The biggest difference between someone who makes less than $10,000 per month and someone who makes 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, $200,000 per month, the most asymmetric skill that that person has is their ability to track numbers. And in this video, I'm gonna show you exactly what that means, how tracking numbers is gonna impact your business, and how you will end up making way more money if you track your numbers. Now, let's talk about the chaos of no numbers, because I used to be someone who never tracked any numbers. Okay, I also started from zero. I had 0 subscribers at some point. I had 0 followers on LinkedIn. I had $0 in my bank account. I had 0 clients. And through hustle, through trying shit out, through throwing mud at the wall, I managed to make some money. But I had blind spots everywhere, okay? I was quite literally guessing instead of knowing. And I guessed that I had a close rate of 80% or 60% or 70%. I had no idea. I was just guessing. I didn't have a CRM to track how many people are booking calls with me. I didn't know exactly how many of those people were actually showing up. I didn't know exactly what is the ratio between objections, because you might have more money objections that are logistical versus money objections that are fear. So you need to be able to track between those two objections, for example, in this, because then you can learn how to handle that specific objection, and then you'll be making way more money. But if you don't know what is actually happening, you won't be able to make those decisions. And that's kind of why we need numbers to make decisions, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. For example, if you'd run ads to get more leads or people booked in your calendar after they saw VSL, if you don't know the difference between, if you guess that 20% of people are opting in instead of knowing that 24% are opting in, that makes the difference between killing a successful ad campaign versus keeping it and getting more bang for your buck, okay? And this comes with a little story. I used to want help from a particular marketing agency, and I was extremely annoyed with my organic growth. It was quite slow and I wanted some help, right? And they asked me, what's your close rate? Because closing from organic is 300 billion% way easier than closing from cold traffic. So they needed to know what is my close rate, because if my close rate was 20% on warm traffic, then that means my close rate is going to be 5% or below on cold traffic. I hope I said hot before. So it's important to know these numbers, because then you know that, okay, we cannot run ads to your offer because your close rate is so low. So you either have to level up in sales or you have to hire a closer. And this was quite embarrassing. This happened in 2022. And that made me realize like how much of an amateur I was. I hope you don't hear the sound, but there's someone doing some sort of construction work above me, or it's quite annoying. Anyway, then the identity shift. Tracking numbers is not data entry. It's not some boring VA job that you can outsource. It's an identity upgrade. So you need to understand that if you want to make a lot of money doing this type of business, like a coaching business, you need to have a different identity. In any kind of entrepreneurial endeavor that you want to get into requires a different identity. You cannot be an employee who has a business. You have to be an entrepreneur who owns a business. And this shift happened to me in around 2022. I was running ads successfully in 2021, and there were a couple of mistakes, a couple of important holidays like Christmas and Thanksgiving, which affected the way my ads were converting. On top of that, we had a minor issue with the calendar. It was like a mess. It destroyed everything. We spent a lot of money. And on top of that, I got a huge tax bill. I think 20,000 euros, something like that. And I just quit my job. My friend at the time convinced me to quit my job. And it was very difficult. I was in this business already for 2.5 years, let's say, maybe 2 years. And I was extremely scared of going all in, because I was still an employee in my mind. I needed more safety. So I quit my job. This bullshit happened with the tax, with the ads, and I went into a massive, massive depression. I had suicidal thoughts. I was walking alone on the streets in November, December in Poland, which is absolutely horrible. And I was just contemplating suicide. There's nothing else for me to do. It was horrible. And even though I had the money to pay that tax bill, even though things weren't that bad, I was such an employee in my brain that I just couldn't take it anymore. And got the job. I got another job. I managed to pay my tax bill, but my content went down because I wasn't excited anymore about producing content. I stopped growing. I started losing some clients, and something switched in me when I went back to that job. I had to wake up every day at 9:15 to do the stand-up, and every day before that stand-up I used to have like panic attacks. I was waking up in the middle of the night and I had nightmares. I absolutely hated what happened to me. Everyone told me I shouldn't quit this job, I should keep it to be safe. My mom, my girlfriend, my friends, everyone was telling me that I should just keep this job and shut up and, I just keep going, pretty much. But in my brain, I just realized that I'm not an employee anymore. I am an entrepreneur. And that's when things really changed. And the same thing can be applied to this. Tracking your numbers is not some cute thing that you want to do. It's something that is vital for your business, because having a quick glance at a few numbers can tell you everything about your business, can tell you if everything is right, or if there's something wrong, or if there's something that can be optimized so you can increase from 4% conversion to 5% conversion. That 1% is going to make a huge difference, okay? But this comes with having this identity of, I'm going to track my numbers. I'm going to be religious about this, okay? Because numbers tell you the truth, okay? A Google Sheet becomes a mirror of reality. Leads problems, check how many posts this month. Content problems, check hooks, post time, CTAs. Sales problems, check objections, categories, close rates, show rates. Numbers point directly to the bottleneck. And I want to share this with you. I'm making this for one of my clients, and I'm going to make this for all my clients that are on Instagram. I'm going to create something like this for YouTube as well. But just by looking at this, we can quickly have a glance over what is happening with her Instagram, okay? We can see that she gets an asymmetric amount of views at night between 8 p.m. and 11 p.m. and between 11 p.m. and 8 a.m. I'm going to go in even more granular in the future after 30 days of doing this. But now we can quite literally make a judgment and say we will never ever post before 8 p.m. and after 8 a.m. And then we'll track that for a month and see what happens, okay? Then we can look at the day of the week, right? We can see that she's getting an asymmetric amount of views on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So here we can create a strategy. Like, for example, these are views from Reels, by the way, not posts. And she's also making posts. I will track that individually. Then we can tell, like, for example, on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we can make an assumption and we can say there are more people watching her on these days. Okay, so then that means on these days we should make more call to actions, or we can post testimonials, or we can post 4 times instead of 3. Okay, or we can find some sort of outlier from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and we can repost this on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Or we can post more trial reels on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So just by looking at these numbers, we can make decisions. Then we can see the top performing reels. We can see that these 3 reels absolutely exploded her account, while these ones were dog shit. So as you can see, numbers will really help you understand everything. But there's also something important that we need to talk about right now. Sample size equals truth. So for example, you might have a small data set, and you might start making decisions. Like, for example, you post 3 reels and then you say, reels don't work for me. Wait, hold on. Let's post 100 reels and then let's make a decision. And it's never only they don't work for me, it's how well they work for you. And if you have a dashboard like this, which you can build by yourself, it's not a big deal, then you can start to see how well things go for you. Because how well things go for you, it's never a black and white or a false or true analogy, okay? It's like flipping a coin. If you have a coin and you flip it, there is a 50% chance that it's gonna fall on the heads or 50% on the tails. I hope you understand this. But if you flip it 10 times, it's very likely that the coin is gonna fall 7 times head and 3 times tails. Is that small data set gonna tell you anything? Of course not. So you need to flip it 10,000 times. And then when you flip it 10,000 times, because you have a large data set, now you'll be able to tell that the coin is gonna flip on one side 50.5% versus 49.5%. So you start to have that equal split. For example, you can't judge your offer after 5 pitches, okay? But you can after 30. You can't judge cold DMs after 100, but you can after 500. Because truth only emerges from large enough data sets. This is a very important concept to understand. For example, right now I'm trying to grow with meta ads on Instagram. I have spent so far maybe $70, something like that. I don't want to get into it, but I spent $70. And I cannot make a decision yet about how well meta ads work. I need to spend at least 100 till I can say, okay, these ads work or not. And then when I look at the data, I can see, okay, I had 600 profile visits, but only 1 follow. Okay, so there could be a couple of things wrong. For example, the ad, the targeting, my profile. Because if you show my profile, which is very niche, you can check it out by clicking there should be a link in the description. If I show my profile to old women who are interested in knitting, none of them will want to follow me, okay? But if I show my profile to the right person, an entrepreneur that is looking to scale their coaching business, there's a very high chance of them following me, okay? So that's kind of how you need to think about data in terms of like the sample size. And then once you track your numbers properly, then you can start to test, double down, and replace. If something works, like a message, like a hook, like a template, repeat it until it fatigues. One of the best decisions I've ever made in my entrepreneurial journey, especially by posting on YouTube, was recreating the same video almost every 2 weeks. You know how some people are trying to find new video ideas, new topics, new hooks, new blah? I wasn't doing that. I actually found a video. It was called How to Get a Remote Developer Job or something like that. And every time I was posting it, it was a 1 out of 10. So it was extremely successful. So what I've decided to do was to repost that video, repost it. And every single time I was posting it, I was getting views, I was getting booked calls, and I was getting sales. It was insane how well it worked. So yeah, if you have content that worked once, like a month ago, repost it. You have new followers, people who never actually saw that video or that post that you've made, repost it. People who already saw it, they will probably like it again because you remind them of something that it's important to them. So don't be scared of repurposing your content, okay? And then when fatigue sets in, because at some point it's gonna happen, you replace with a variation. You have to try to think about content and business like biology. It's numbers, biology, it's like all these sciences together. And you look at what worked and you try to come up with a small variation of it. And then you try that out. And then you compare it with the main thing. And then you see how well it does compared with the main thing. If it did well, then you're gonna double down on that and you're gonna try to find a variation or like a mutation of that species. And you try to make your hook or your title stronger. That's kind of how it works. And then every time you find the winning formula, that's gonna equal to leverage point to scale. If you find a piece of content that works for you once, then you can repurpose that into an ad, for example. Okay, it's very likely that if something hooked really well on TikTok, it's gonna hook really well on Instagram. It's not guaranteed, of course, but now you have something that is kind of proven on one platform to work, and you can try it on other platforms like Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, etc. You have to be creative. And the operator's edge, scaling from 5K to 100K to $1 million a month is about mastery of numbers. Emotions lie, numbers don't. With numbers, you stop asking why isn't this working, because you now know. So I used to make decisions based on what happened today. Today I didn't get any booked calls. Oh shit, I'm gonna change my entire YouTube strategy. Or yesterday I didn't get any booked calls. I should change how many videos I'm posting per week. No. Like, the further I get into my entrepreneurial journey, the better I can wait and be patient and just execute the strategy that I started in the first place. Because I can keep making changes, I can keep messing around with the system, but that doesn't mean it's gonna work. I'm just creating more chaos. So you need to start looking at large data sets, and ideally you look at large spans of time. Because let's say if you let's not talk about cold DMs. Let's say you can post in a day on YouTube 100 videos. Is that gonna tell you something? Sure, maybe. But I'm telling you, posting 100 videos in 100 days is gonna tell you more about YouTube and about what you have to do than if you post 100 videos in one day. So you have to start thinking in like long periods of time, and that's gonna give you an edge. If you want me to help you scale your coaching business, there's a link in the description. I want you to book it. My goal is to take you from $5,000 to $10,000 per month to $50,000 to $100,000 per month. And this is not for beginners. So if you don't have a coaching business, if you are, a beginner, this is not for you. But if you have an already existing coaching business, you have some testimonials, you already post content on YouTube or on Instagram, and you're looking to grow without making the mistakes that I made hundreds of billions of times in the past, then there is a shortcut for that, which is getting my help. So click on the first link in the description and let's talk. Peace out.